Hello and welcome to A Novel Idea, the show where we interview authors. I am Noelle Bach, your host, and today I am with Eric Gongola, and he wrote his first novel, which is You and What Army?
Yes, thanks Noelle, thanks for having me here.
Great to have you. So let's dive in and talk about your book a little bit. So you kind of have a little bit of a teaser on the front there.
Yes.
Summer of 1975. Why did you pick 1975 to center your novel on?
Well, first of all, of course, I always wanted to write a book. Every kid who ever finally does write a book always says that. At least I wanted to be someone who had written a book. Let's put it that way. And about 2012, I was at a point in my life I just needed to step back, reset things, and finally write that book I'd always been threatening to write. And I needed a safe place to do that, and 1975 was the safest place I could think of. It was my favorite year as a kid. Like the main character, Stevie, I was 11 years old, and it was the summer of the 75 Red Sox and the summer of Jaws, which seemed like a great place to start, but of course story is conflict, so all I was lacking was a plot. So I started thinking more about what was going on in 75. Vietnam was ending, at least the shooting was. The Cold War was still going. Race relations weren't great, to say the least. We're in the aftermath of Watergate, so there was a lot to work with. So I just put my imagination to work on that. Came up with the beginning, came up with the end, and put it on my characters to let me know where we're going with this.
So your main character's name is Stevie,
Yes.
and so he's an 11-year-old boy. And a lot of things are happening around
Yes,
his
I
life.
throw everything at him, including the kitchen sink.
Yeah, no spoilers really in here. I try to stay away from spoilers. But yeah, a lot happens during that. And I guess, what is that? Is it from like April-ish to?
It's,
sort of
very early
spring.
spring.
The beginning of
first
the
hints of
next
spring
school year,
to
right?
the next school year. Yep.
To the beginning of the next school year. So in that period of time, quite a bit happens. Now, do you feel like you base Stevie on yourself to a degree?
My brother certainly thinks I did, because he kept calling and saying, hey, when you do this and when you do that, and I had to remind him, well, you weren't in Vietnam and all these other things never really happened, but okay, it's loosely based on me. The general feel of it is based on me, in that my dad suffered from PTSD from World War II. And yes, as the cover suggests, the home front was a minefield. He treated his PTSD with alcohol. And so you were always ready. You're always expecting something to go wrong. And I just, of course, in fiction, you just throw everything at the character, not just one little thing at a time. So yes, loosely, based on my general feeling as a kid of not being in control of anything going on around me. So in that respect, that element of the book was my self-therapy.
You kind of worked through some stuff,
yes,
with that, and came to terms with some things as you went through. Yeah, which I would imagine be very therapeutic.
Yes.
To kind of get that all down on paper as well. And say, like, a lot of things happen in the story as well. And I was interested. So you have Stevie's older brother, recently back from Vietnam, also with PTSD.
Yes.
As well. So you kind of have like a dual characters.
Yeah, it's quite the household. Fun place.
In the family with the PTSD. Did you do so obviously your father had it. And
We
so
didn't call it that then.
Yeah, of course,
but
it didn't have
it
that
clearly
title
was.
then,
Yeah.
or whatever. And so did you do some work, just researching more about PTSD as you were
As
working
much
through
as
the
I
novel?
really needed to, because like I said, I was very familiar with it. It was more a case of I would find characters from my youth. I remember taking the bus downtown, and there was this one stop, and there was this one guy always there, younger guy, who would just scream at the traffic as it went by. And I obviously remember him to this day and think, what was his story? I would guess maybe he wasn't in Vietnam, but that's where my mind went. Like, wow, what brings someone to to just lash
Right.
out and
Right.
or just be so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And which
Yeah.
is, I think, is the biggest part I've seen of PTSD.
Yeah, for sure. And now Stevie has an obsession with like, well, World War II and like
Yes.
war things too. Were you like that as a kid as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grew up on World War II stories at the dinner table. But oddly, my brother had a very low draft number. If the war had gone on much longer, he might very well have been drafted. He wasn't. I never heard the word Vietnam in school.
Interesting.
It was never mentioned. You know, we'd finish up the year and we'd be at Gettysburg, but we never got to Vietnam. Didn't know a thing about it as a little kid.
Yeah, and same like when I went through school, we did not talk about Vietnam. Like,
Yeah.
as you would go through like American history, you'd go through the Civil
Mhm.
War, then you'd get up to World War II,
Yep.
and then maybe you get into civil rights or something, but then it would always just
Yep.
die off, by there.
Yeah,
You never
there
got
wasn't a
into
lot of that discussed in the 70s either.
Yeah, it's very interesting
Yeah.
how we decide to treat some of those pieces of history.
Very selective.
Right, yeah, very, very interesting. All right, so we got Stevie. Stevie's got his household that we're kind of, we've got the dad, we've got mom who's a little bit on the bitter side, the one bringing in the money for the family.
Yes.
We've got the older brother who's freshly back from Vietnam and struggling with his PTSD. And you have 11-year-old Stevie who's parsing through all of these things. And then you add in the new family moving in across the street, which is a black family moving into a
Very
white neighborhood.
Yep. And that did not happen in my neighborhood. We had a lumber yard across the street.
Oh.
But I imagined, in looking into what issues I could address in the book, like, wow, well, there's something. Because I think there were 2 black kids in my elementary school. I had very little interaction with either. But just enough that I know how Stevie would feel, like how he's supposed to act.
Yeah.
How do I have to be different? How are they going to be different? And of course, he strikes up a relationship per se with the older brother across the street. Spends a lot of time with him, and there's a lot of posturing on Marcus, the black teenager, late teen from across the street. He knows, he can sense what Stevie is thinking and just plays it. It plays Stevie.
Right, yeah.
He knows what he's expecting from a black guy, so Marcus just leans into it and then has fun with it. Marcus also has a facade for other reasons that we find out about later.
Right, yes, which we won't
Yes.
fully get to. A savvy reader might figure something out
Yep.
sooner than later, but about what's going on with Marcus. And it's interesting because his dad does call him out at one point about how he's posturing around Stevie.
Right.
And and he's like, "What?
Yeah.
It's fine."
Yeah.
And Dad's like, "Stop acting."
Yeah.
Like the
I
fool
had to
kind
address
of thing.
that at least a little bit. It's Stevie's story. We only know what's going on from Stevie's perspective in the entire book, but I had to address that to some degree.
And so, did you feel like in New Bedford that you felt racial tensions going on?
It was on the other side of the city. New Bedford's a long, skinny city, and that was the other side of the city. So we heard about it. And hearing about things sometimes is worse than experiencing them because it's all hearsay, it's all rumor, it's all those people.
Yep.
That was prevalent. I'm not going to hide that. And, it wasn't always pretty. So, as I said, I imagine if a black family had moved into this neighborhood or my neighborhood as a kid, it would have been, whoa.
And you interestingly also have, so you have all of the interesting like little characters, right? So you have the other elderly gentleman, neighbor,
Yes.
who is, I guess we don't know that much about his story, right? There's sort of like a little bit, just like the kids everyone's avoiding him because he's crabby.
Yeah, he's crabby. There's probably some dementia setting in, and he's so old he looks like he came with the place, right?
Right, yeah. Widower,
Yep.
right, and everything
remembers
like
the way
that.
things were. But I like challenging characters and readers. Like, I want people to bring certain expectations, certain preconceived notions of what someone would have been like then, and then turn it a bit. Like, well, no, because we weren't stereotypes. People had their own ideas. people were still possibly evil, possibly good at heart. So
I feel like most of us as kids had some neighbor that you were afraid, the neighbor you were afraid of,
right.
like, or whose house you were like, oh, don't go in their yard, they're going to yell at you,
Yep.
kind of thing. So, and I thought that was really a nice piece in the book that you brought that neighbor sort of into the lives of other people, who made him over time like less scary, less of as somebody to be that needed help. And needed some understanding. And like, by the end of the book, right? Like there's an embracing. The larger embracing by more of the neighbors. Of that particular person.
Right. I wouldn't say that's the moral of the story. I didn't want to put a bow on anything here. But I wanted to. Life is more about the highlights, and seeing them and appreciating them, which is what I tried to bring out here.
So one of the other things that just comes up quite a bit is the church, right? And the role of the church in the lives of people, belief and not belief, and the involvement of the local Catholic priest in the neighborhood as well. Did you grow up Catholic?
Yes.
You did, as well. And so did you serve as an altar boy?
I
and
did
things
not.
Like that? No?
I did not. Unlike the characters I've created, my mom was the religious one, as far as bringing her kids to church, and she was fairly devout. My dad had no use for the church whatsoever. So that was going on. And it gave me a healthy skepticism. And so there was no way I was going to be an altar boy. But I knew kids who were. The scandal was going on, except no one knew about it yet, except maybe the victims, and, well, obviously the victims and the perpetrators, and maybe a few other people who wouldn't talk about it. And that's where we are here.
Right, yes.
And so there's so much suspicion once someone gets a whiff of something. And I try to play on that in the book. And
you play on that.
I play on that.
You play on that for sure. Well, we're going to take a quick break so that you can read a little bit from your book, and we can hear a little bit of what's going on.
Yes.
And then we'll come back and talk some more after
that. All right.
that.
Thank you.
All right.
The walk home cleared his head, giving his mind room to roam. He'd leave this place someday, he thought, kicking a rock down Brewer Lane. He'd find a place where he controlled what happened around him, where he didn't have to worry about what other people thought. Hilda Perry waved from the other side of her picket fence, taking a break from raking under a crabapple trees to arch her stiff back. "Don't get old, Stevie," she said. Stevie smiled and waved back. Yes, he'd go somewhere before he got too old to do anything. Not like where Paul had gone. He gave the rock a final kick. No, he'd go someplace where he was in charge. The rhapsodized bickering of Mom and Dad met Stevie halfway up the driveway. He couldn't make out the words, but he could hum the tune. He sneaked along the wheelchair ramp to the back door, told Toof to hush, and hurried up the stairs to his bedroom. Stevie reached for the transistor radio on his nightstand, tempted as always to drown out the vitriol bubbling up from the living room, but far more afraid of missing something important. "Button up that front," Andy chided. "No wife of mine is going out in public like that." "What's the matter, Andy? Can't handle a little cleavage?" Vivian's mocking tone always ratcheted up the tension of these all too frequent exchanges. "If I don't spill a little honey, I don't get tips, and we don't get enough to eat around here." Leaning on the windowsill, Stevie surveyed Brewer Lane, wondering how many of the neighbors knew that his parents didn't get along. Sometimes, standing there, even when the house went quiet, there was no escaping the reminders of earlier dust-ups. His mother's disdain for the church pranced along the power lines overhead. Unpaid bills snagged in the barberry along the path to the shore. Incessant squabbling over what Paul might have seen, recalled, or understood of the war churned behind the creaky shutters of the Clay homestead across the street. The twin dormers of that ramshackle house stared back at Stevie now, their cloudy windows vacant and impervious. He had never ventured inside, but he imagined cracked walls and dusty mantels adorned with yellow photographs of Clay's long past. Simple people with bad teeth living short, boring lives with no television, no blueprint for how life should be. He followed the roof line to the crumbling chimney. Beyond it, a pair of sparrows chased a crow low across the sky. A daffodil peeked from the verdure on Cobb Hill. At its crest, The budding branches of a giant elm swayed impatiently, as if beckoning, even as everything around it sat stone still.
There's your beginning.
That's just that's Stevie assessing his world and deciding what he's going to do about it.
So through the course of that beginning story, I guess. So you have Stevie, you've got the setup of his family, you know, his mother basically being the support of the family. You've got a religious father who does find some employment later, which is good.
Interesting job.
And then you have these inserts of like these different characters, right? So Stevie's got his bully kind of types that he
kind
deals
of a stereotypical bully, but with a backstory that comes out slowly.
Right, that comes out later. Yep. And I appreciated that just about everybody that you had a backstory, like that pops in. Even was it Joey Freitas? Yeah, Joey Freitas, who like when we meet his mother, like you're kind of like, oh, like here's a little piece of why Joey might be like Joey is. And you have, you know, there's as aforementioned neighbors, you know, as well, and then like Vivian's boss, Carl, who's also friends with Andy, who has his own stuff that's going on with him too. So you really bring a lot into what's going on in Stevie's world over this very short period of time, right? There's a lot of things happening, and then you're building, which I won't spoil, this other storyline that like works. I mean, it does work into the scandal with the what we didn't know at the time yet, before that Spotlight movie ever came out. And all
right.
And those Boston
Probably
Globe,
my favorite movie.
Yeah, and Boston Globe, you know, broke all of that stuff that was happening with the church. But like that stuff was happening just behind the scenes, and that's something that Stevie starts suspecting, I guess we'll say, is like starts becoming something that he's becoming aware of like what might be going on behind the closed doors of the sacristy. So we have all of this build towards something that we're not sure exactly what's going to happen, and then you throw in, you have a theme that goes out throughout is baseball, and you
it is like I mentioned, this was going to be a love letter to the '75 Red Sox. I actually went on eBay and found a day-by-day
really
recap of that entire season, and I would put it in there in spots. It's the foundation, but not much of the foundation shows anymore. But it's there.
Well, I mean, it's very, to me, it's like noticeable because you always bring it back
Yeah.
to like, oh, there's a game on. Oh, how the Sox
Yeah.
doing?
It was that
certain
safe-
players, right? Like I used to love Jim Rice myself.
Yep.
You know, Lynn, and you know the different characters throughout there, which is, so I think is, you know, anybody who has that little bit of love for the Sox, you
Right.
know, and any of the history of the Sox will definitely pick up and be like, ooh, the
Yeah.
Sox. And then you have like the very nicely the neighbor Kelsey, right?
Yes.
Who's a little bit tomboyish, but now like she's that couple of years older than Stevie.
She's maturing.
So she's hitting puberty.
Yep.
Things are starting to change a little bit there. Stevie's becoming aware of girls.
Yeah.
and his
Aware
own,
at least.
Yeah, aware at least. Yeah.
In general, he's just old enough to start noticing things, and in the context of the story, possibly thinking he can do something about them.
Right, yes. And so
just
one
right
of
at
the
that
pieces
age.
I thought was very interesting, and I was wondering about your perspective as when you were 11-year-old too, because I was interested where we think kids are aware of or not, is like he starts pulling together pieces of different things, right? So, you know, what he's seeing while he's an altar boy, and like what he's seeing from his brother, and what people might be saying, like stray remarks and things, and he's pulling it together into a bigger narrative, which may or may not be a true narrative. Do you feel like you were like that as an 11-year-old?
I don't know. I guess I think most kids are like that. If they're looking for evidence of something, they'll find it.
Well, I think that's, you don't have to be
That might
11.
that might be
to
universal.
do that way, right? I think like we all do that, right? Like,
Right.
If you really want to believe something,
Yep.
Because there's like a lot
Yeah,
of...
what am I talking about? Look at the climate we're in.
I know,
Yes.
right? There's plenty to talk about
we don't have to
there.
go back 50 years for that.
Yeah, but I thought that was like a very interesting piece of like what he's trying to piece together. And interesting to me was the character of Marcus, the older brother of the family who moves in across the street, because he actually puts the pressure on Stevie to deliver evidence of what he wants to believe is happening too.
To the point where even Stevie backs off a little bit and doesn't share everything with Marcus. Like he's a little, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I know where this is going, but why does he know? Why does he think he knows where this is going?
Right, yeah. So. And then it becomes like, a little unsure, like, because he's kind of like, what is he going to do if I give him this thing that he wants? You're like, what? Wait a minute. Like, wait a minute.
Take your foot off the gas.
Right. So it gets so that's like, obviously when you're getting late in the book and you're sort of like where, you see that there's a match going to be lit and dropped somewhere. And it's just what's going to happen from that point, which we can't talk about.
Right.
Because you have to read the book. Find out what happens then. So the real, what was I going to say? Like I don't know what to call her exactly, but the real like sort of like a spanner in the works is when you drop in the sister, Vivian's sister, from deciding to move there from California. And she pulls in, like, I don't know how much we want to even talk about it.
I know.
Really, too.
I know. It's tough.
Just like another element that she brings to the table. Because not only does she have like a whole nother perspective on things, but she brings in like a piece that I think is very uncommon to find in a story like this. Oh, I can't really talk about it though because it would spoil too much. But
I didn't want it to be a predictable book. I like surprises in a book. And you talked about minor characters having backstory. My gripe about, I love television. I grew up on television. But if someone's in a story, particularly in a movie, they're a prime player somewhere.
Right.
Or they're edited out.
Right.
In real life, characters come and go. They drop in, they drop out. They don't always play a key role, but they might have some influence you don't even realize at the moment. So that's what I tried to do here.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. I'd say like because everybody plays some little part, but it might not be a part that's forwarding the plot as much as they're just a piece of the world.
Illuminating, like the trip to the bar room.
Right.
And I introduced a character there that I let him paint a picture of what it was like, what race relations have been like back, at least from their perspective, back to the 40s, back during World War II. And
that is actually, I'm glad that you brought that up too. So you bring up this little piece of, I don't want to say it's unknown, but little known history about World War II. Just talk about that for just a second.
Stevie and Ronnie, his friend from the brother that's his age of the black family across the street, they team up for a school project, and it ends up being about the Red Ball Express, which was a black unit during World War II. For the most part, black units did not see combat, but they were in the thick of things, and they, as Ronnie's mother points out, they let us die just as much as everyone else. So we were capable. They didn't think we were capable of fighting, but we were capable of dying just as well as everybody else. And that's a revelation to Stevie because he has a bookcase full of books on World War II and never came across that. Like, what is this? And they were a unit that brought supplies to the front. And Ronnie's uncle was killed during the war. And that's just, that's a revelation to Stevie, to the point where Stevie starts becoming a little defensive at times when people are trying to tell him what really was, what really happened, and he can say, no, you don't know the whole story.
Right.
Can't give away too much, but and can't read the whole scene, but the scene in the bar is very, I think that was a very common attitude back then. Like, why would you write about black soldiers in World War II? Like, they didn't do anything. Well, they did. And there is an element where another character, it's not a major plot twist or anything, but one of the black soldiers is injured, or not wounded, but injured in an accident, and he can't go to the hospital because there are white nurses there.
Right.
Because that's the way it was.
Right.
Which is incredible.
And I did read a book a long time ago now, but it was about medical personnel who fought in the different war or participated in different wars. And they did have black nurses who came, but they kept them separate, like they were in
Right.
their own separate like facilities, and you had to be in separate buses and separate things, and it's it's one of those other things. It's like they were there, but it's just hidden history, right? That was there. So
you mentioned Boston earlier, and busing was going on in Boston in '75.
Oh, right.
Desegregation, and again in New Bedford, at 11 years old, I had no idea what was going on.
Right.
A little bit on the news, but that's far away, and other people.
Right, yeah. And I think most kids, like,
Right.
we're not glued to the news.
Yeah.
Like, that's the boring stuff that comes after cartoons.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
We're walking away.
Even though I became a journalist, it was mainly because I like to say facts paid better than fiction. I couldn't go write a novel at 17, but I could get a job at the local paper. So.
Very interesting. Yep. Now, I always ask, do you have a library card?
Am I supposed to say it's expired? It is, but I'm at that library a lot. It's Yarmouth Port Library in Yarmouth, on Route 6A, my favorite road in the world. Love that road.
Do you love 6A?
Yes.
Even in the summer when it's filled with traffic?
Well, the upside of that is you get to look at more.
No, that's true.
Because you're stuck in traffic. Beautiful place, though. And if I believed in heaven, heaven would be Route 6A in the fall, and you just get to go up and down that road for eternity. That would be heavenly.
It is. It is a very nice thing because there's so many trees, so you have like a lot of pretty trees. I have friends who live in Sandwich right on 6A, so I go down there sometimes. I like the Cape. The Cape's a great place to be.
And Yarmouth Port was the first library to buy the book.
Oh,
so
well, there you go. Well, I do at my library, which is just a couple doors down, I buy a collection of all the books that we talk about on the show.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So we'll have our little novel idea collection, so your book will join.
Nice. I don't hesitate to say I will go online to the Commonwealth catalog and search for my book, and it's so gratifying to just see it checked out. I want people exposed to the story. I want them to enjoy the story.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah. And the other gratifying part being I've built a boomer blunderland here that a lot of people can relate to, but the gratifying part is like you put me right back in the 70s. So I got that part right for sure.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, it's good to get that feedback.
Yeah, it's good to hear that.
Well, see, a half hour goes by real fast.
It really does.
So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was great to have you, and hopefully we'll get that other book out sometime soon. We'll maybe get to have you back.
I hope so. It's going to be a long winter. I hope you do a lot of writing.
Maybe it'll be finally like a really cold one, and we'll
could be.
Want to be inside and spend time at the fire writing something up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming in,
Noelle.
Eric. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please check out our past episodes, which you can find on YouTube. And we'll see you again next time on A Novel Idea.